Content of this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical concerns or conditions. The views and opinions expressed by our guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of MSAD or Critical Mental Health. Patrick Graham is of the Christian faith and an ordained minister in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thank you for listening.
Hey everybody, just want to thank you for jumping in again today. This morning I just called my friend Dr. David Defoe and I just said, hey, there's a lot of grief that's going on, a lot of loss that we have had over the past 2-3 weeks. We could name them. I literally have named approximately 11 people that I know of or that have lost their lives over the past maybe month and a half or so. And I called him this morning and I said, hey, Dave, I just wanted to chat with you today about how do we get through this loss? I mean, even in my own family, my brother's wife's mother, we still call her auntie. And, we go through, here we're going to get ready to go through Thanksgiving and even Christmas. But what do people actually go through? So I called him up. He's in the green room waiting to come up, a good friend of mine. And I think he's more than qualified to be able to talk to us about this, dealing with grief and counseling, dealing with grief. And I'm just going to ask you guys to call in when you can, call in or even DM me if you're not going to be on here live. But there are those who will be struggling during this time. And there are ways that there could be some release or relief. It's not going to go away. Maybe we also need to talk about what grief is all about. So anyway, just hang with us for a little bit. Share this. Take the time right now to share this. And more than that, subscribe and follow. Follow us. We'll begin right after.
Welcome to Managing Stress, Anxiety, and Depression, the MSAD podcast, a production of Critical Mental Health. You're listening to Patrick Graham, who specializes in trauma healing and expresses a love for mental health management. Join us as we explore expert interviews, personal testimonials,
and all of that. Dave, how you doing?
Pat, I'm good, man.
Yeah, man. I know you got a lot to do today, especially right before Thanksgiving, and you got your
How you know what I got to do? You don't know what I got to do.
Well, yeah, it's Wednesday, and you're at your establishment, at your passion, at your dream. So, I mean, I expected you to be gone for like maybe go to Boston and see your mom or something like that. I don't know. I figured you'd be gone by now, but I also knew that you'd be the perfect person to talk to us about grief. You know, Dave, this has been the worst I think that I've ever felt. Sometimes we say deaths come in threes. And but this time it has been a whole lot that have come through at one time. Can you explain to me or explain to those who are watching now, what is grief? What is it?
Well, when we talk about grief, we talk about grief more than just in the context of death and dying.
Right. That's
Of
right.
course, for many of us, grief is the loss of someone, significant to us. But we can grieve any significant change in any pattern of behavior creates loss, creates a feeling of grief. And oftentimes we either dismiss it or we try to call it something else. Many people, they feel like they are depressed when really they're grieving loss or they're grieving transitions. There's many people that have anxiety, and it is really a grief response. And so grief is so varied, but it's also so common. It touches us all. We all will lose someone eventually. It's a part of life and living. But it's not just the loss of individuals through death. It's also the loss of hopes, dreams, expectations. It's the loss of jobs. We don't understand when we move our children from one place to the next. There's loss that accompanies it. There's all types of grief, and so as we talk about grief specifically around the holidays, we have to realize that it's a lot more than just loss of life. Even though that's oftentimes the most stinging effect or lasting effect that people have during this time.
Wow. You're right about that. We normally think of when we come into Thanksgiving or we're coming to Christmas or this whole season from actually uh, after Halloween, I guess if you want to call it that, to where we are now.
Yeah.
It's like it puts us into this festive mode, but then we don't really think about others that have gone through it. And I'm grateful
Yeah.
before we even get to the death or grief, that part of it, that you're right. There are those who have lost their jobs or divorce. Is it grief and divorce? Can you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Some people grieve when they get married. No, no, you're laughing. You're laughing,
Okay, you want to unpack that just a
but
little bit? No,
real
really.
real quick, the
Re- uh,
period, what makes the second year of marriage so difficult empirically is that people are grieving their singleness. They're now adjusting
Wow.
to, yeah, people don't see it. It's grief. That's what makes that adjustment so difficult, man. But yeah, that's another conversation for another day.
No, and we have to have that conversation. No, Dave, we have to have that conversation because even though my thrust is managing stress, anxiety, and depression, you still got to know what it is because like
Yeah.
yesterday we were having a conversation. I was having a conversation with Krista, and she was talking about hormonal, dealing with thyroid, dealing with vitamin D levels. Not everything that we call anxiety or anything we call depression comes. Maybe that's not what it is, but it manifested it that way. So when you're
Well,
looking at marriage and you just do that, you just do a curveball in there for grief the second year.
you gotta realize that anxiety is oftentimes a companion that comes along with something else.
Correct. Correct.
And so understanding, in order to treat oftentimes individuals with anxiety, you have to find out what else is co-occurring, what else is walking alongside that anxiety, what is the overarching fear that they have that maybe has its genesis somewhere else.
Right. 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 Wow. That's crazy. And so here we are. Dave. First of all, I need to tell you this. I know that first of all, I'm upset with you. So, we have to get through that because you called me, kind of like Diddy behavior because it was your birthday, and I just wanted to put up that one of my friends has a birthday. What is there a big problem with me saying that it was your birthday?
That picture was taken with me looking at my wife, trying to get lucky, and you posted my picture up, and it makes it so. I mean, you didn't understand the context of the picture, but it was kind of
Everybody
like
don't know the context of the picture
kind of
though.
like
Everybody.
I know, but where did you find it in the first place? Kind of like I should have some baby oil or
Yeah.
something.
We'll get baby oil, but it'll be for you and your wife, okay? It's not, I mean, you. But I just want to tell you happy birthday
Like, what are
too.
we supposed to be talking about, man?
We'll get
Let's
to
talk
it.
about
Listen,
this. Is very important.
it's about conversation. So I wanted to be able to get to it because I wanted to say, listen, don't get mad at me, but I want to put this out there. One of the reasons why I did ask you to do this is because I know that I believe your dissertation was in grief, correct? What was your dissertation in?
Yeah, my dissertation is in male spousal loss.
Male spousal loss.
Yeah,
So someone
so
who loses
widowers,
widowers.
men who lose their spouses. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, very good.
So,
So,
yeah.
so I know that you're the one that got me to go to WAU to get my master's. Thanks for that. Actually, we were in school before that.
You don't have to tell people all your business, man. You don't
It,
have to tell people that you dropped out. That 20 that we could have you could have been finished this 20 years ago, but instead you decided to drop out and you quit. You don't have to be a quitter to people. You don't gotta let people know,
I
man.
don't gotta let
We
people know
started
that.
at Bowie State. We started at Bowie State together, man.
It's true. We sure did. We sure did.
But
We sure
but
did.
I was a single pastor trying to stay out of trouble. Probably didn't work, but I was a pastor trying to stay out of trouble. And you had a whole family and stuff, so you were in a different part of your life, man.
I
So
sure I haven't, but honestly, I do look at you as a mentor in this part of what I call my ministry. I use it as a tool in my ministry. And I just want to let everyone know you are a licensed clinical professional counselor, state of Maryland. You're
Hmm.
also a clinical supervisor.
Okay.
Love,
Yeah, I'm your clinical supervisor if you get yourself together.
it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Member of the ACA, all right. Board certified NCC, board certified
Hmm.
NCC. Let me just say what I got to say. Certified mental health first aid instructor. We know that through the conference. You've taught. Certified grief recovery specialist. Prepare, enrich, facilitator training. All right.
Yeah.
Yep. I've gotten mine through you. Certified crisis intervention specialist. We're getting there. We're getting there. Saving your marriage before it starts.
Pat, what are we doing, man?
No, no. I want people to know that when we are discussing this together, that we have someone who knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to grief. That's why it's
Okay.
not just a conversation of friendship, et cetera, et cetera. I want you to know. I want people to understand who's going through this. There are people who text me, call me, what they're going. I want you to be able to share. Where do we go from here? And I just didn't want it to be someone who's just talking off the top of your head. You are a specialist in this.
Okay. Sure. Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable by reading all the stuff that you do, but I'm proud of you, and I don't think I would be where I am today as far as mental health is concerned if it wasn't for you. Yes, you're younger than me. I hate that you're younger than me, but you're still my mentor when it comes to mental health. All right. Checks in the
All right. No
mail.
problem, man.
Checks in the
All
mail.
right.
Grief. Let's get to this thing. What am I going to do? Someone will ask, what am I going to do now? My mom is not here to cook. My dad's not going to be, playing dominoes in the other room or just sitting around or watching the game or whichever. This Thanksgiving. My son, my daughter is not going to be around. Where do we go from here? I mean, I'm me just saying that just now. I saw a brick wall. How do I get past that brick wall?
That the reality is the only way that we deal with grief is to welcome it, allow it to um, allow it to authenticate our emotions and our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
the only way that we get through grief is to feel it. So a lot of times, what we try to do is we try to turn it off as quickly as possible. That's what we do with people at funerals when we offer them tissues when they're crying. We think it's support, but what we're telling them is, man, please turn off your emotions quick enough so I don't have to find mine that I've tried to bury. And so a
God.
lot of people, we try to bury or hide our emotions, and it doesn't work. There's no prescription or prescriptive process for dealing with grief. Grief is unique. It's experienced by each griever on a unique level because we don't necessarily grieve people, we grieve relationships. And so you can have two people in the same family that respond differently to the loss of the same person. It's because we grieve our relationships. We grieve the impact of those relationships. And so it's important for us to sort of understand and come to grips with that and grasp that. um, but what we do, there's an empty chair at the table. This is the first Thanksgiving. This is the first holiday without our loved ones. This is the first situation that we have without someone that's significant to us. And it feels like the world has gone on and our world has completely stopped and our world has completely changed while everybody else is sharing pictures and everyone else is excited and all that other kind of stuff. um, you know, we are stuck. Um, and the truth of the matter is, um, the feelings and the pain. It's something that we have to sit with. A lot of people will tell you that there are steps that you can take, there are things that you can do. Really, grief is something that you have to allow to come in the room and sit with you. You have to be able to sit with the sadness, with the darkness, because it's only through sitting with the sadness that it begins to improve. It's only in talking about it, the same way with anxiety. As we expose things to the light, and as we talk about them, and as we try to, exercise less avoidance, it impacts us differently.
So what I said was wrong then. It's not trying to get through that brick wall. It's not trying to find a quick way out of it.
There is no quick way out. The only quick way out of it is for the person that you've lost to come back. Other than apart from that, there's nothing else that you can do. There has to be a reorientation to life. There has to be a reorientation to putting, life has changed. There's no going back. Life is completely going to be different. There are going to be conversations that you wish you could have that you no longer can have. There are going to be hopes, wishes, dreams, expectations that you wanted to have for this Thanksgiving or you wanted to have for this holidays. And now you're grieving not only the loss of this person, but you're also grieving now secondary losses in the fact that now not only have I lost my mother, but now I've lost all the expectation and the hope that I have for her, for what that relationship was going to look like. And so now it's sort of compounded. Um, and so it also breeds a lot of loneliness, like people don't understand, like no one understands what I'm uniquely going through. And the truth of the matter is no one will understand what you uniquely are going through, because we grieve relationships, and because relationships are different, no one can understand uniquely what it is that you are going through.
Mhm.
And so it's important to find support. It's important to find community. It's important to find even your own unique language to help you navigate how it is that you are feeling.
My own
That's
unique
important.
language. I,
Yeah.
my own unique language. Spiritually, what are we talking about when we talk about the way we speak to ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves?
Um, to describe how you feel. So a lot of people, when they are looking for grief, causes a lot of confusion, and
Okay.
so a lot of
Okay.
people, when they're looking to understand what's going on, um, they reach for, say, the Kubler Ross's five stages of
Stages.
grief,
Hmm.
or they
Hmm.
may look for Linman stages or something like that, or they may look to to Bowlby's attachment theory to talk about some relationship with grief. Um, and really, what they're trying to do is they're trying to concretize how they feel themselves, because they're confused, they don't understand, and they're looking for something to categorize the pain that they're dealing with. When the truth of the matter is, I have to look internally to begin to describe how it is that I feel. I have to find my own unique language to describe, the pain, to describe the emptiness that I feel, to describe for some people the conflicting feelings that they get. Well, mom was sick, but she's not here, so what do I do? Um, you know, being able to sort of navigate those the complexities of even that duality is important.
Is there a positive side of grieving?
Sure. The positive side of grief is that you grieve those that you love, and so grief is a response to a love that continues, that has nowhere else to go. There's no more physical manifestation for the outpouring of that love, and
Right.
so the beautiful thing is, if I'm grieving, that means that there's someone that I loved, and so there's some gratitude
Wow.
that could be there. That the gratitude for having the relationship, and the gratitude for having the person in your life, and hopefully that can bring some little bit of sunshine or a little bit of warmth to that cold, dark place that grief is. Remembering the good times, taking time to remember the memories, telling the stories. It's important for individuals who are suffering, losses from someone who has always been instrumental to their Thanksgiving table, to still get together and not act like that person doesn't exist, but no, put the empty chair there at the table and tell stories, and,
Wow.
and talk about the memories, and talk about the things that were impactful, the things that you remember, the little secrets that, not big secrets, but the little secrets that some know that others don't know. What that does is it brings the memory of the person back up, but it also allows you to understand that you're not alone in your grief. That even though I know that we're all grieving the same person because we're in the same family, it all looks different. And so it gives that person permission to take the uniqueness of their own personality and you grieve in a unique way, which is important.
So is it okay at the dining room table to take a couple of minutes out to talk about that person? Is it okay to actually say, okay, everyone, I just want to take this minute out for us to think about dad who's no longer here? Is it okay to do that?
It's okay to do whatever it is that you want.
Hmm.
There's no right or wrong way to grieve. Now, understand. that when you do that, when you do that, uh, other people, other we deal with our losses in such a different way. It's such a varied response. So some people, they may be wanting to ignore their loss, or they may be wanting to hide their loss, or they may think that it's easier for me to get through this if I'm not crying all the time, or if I'm not enveloped in this overarching feeling of sadness. And so you just got to remember that it will trigger the conversations will trigger different people in different ways. But this is where grace comes in terms of being with family. You have to give the people in your family the grace to be able to grieve, and the space to be able to grieve in their own unique way.
Mm.
We can't, we can't, we can't, we can't feel the elephant in the room and it take up so much space, and we not say anything because it may trigger someone else. There has to be room in the family and around our tables for the grief to be present, for those people who don't want to talk about it to not talk about it, those people who do want to talk about it to talk about it. We have to be communal in how we deal with our grief.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. So it's okay if we're at Thanksgiving dinner or if we're at Christmas and someone sheds a tear, and we allow them to be who they are.
Well, see, you do a lot of things with anxiety, and so you know when we experience grief, we always try to avoid hurtful thoughts, memories, and emotions that cause us pain,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because you got this hypervigilance. You feel like you're constantly aware that bad things can happen at any time, and you
Sure.
want to be able to make sure that you can prepare for the
If right,
bad things.
right.
Well, grief is a disruptor to that. And so there is some fear that comes along with not wanting to be caught off guard again, or wanting to, to avoid, or, you being afraid that, if we don't talk about it, this person will be ignored, or this person's memory will there's such a continuum, a broad continuum of reactions. That we get from grief. And so we just have to make sure that we make the environment conducive to anyone and everyone in any way that they'd like to grieve, to have the space and the opportunity to do that. Even if they want to get upset, I don't suggest get upset and drink. But if they, even if they want to get upset, and they want to get angry, they want to, yell and scream, and they want to, give people the opportunity to, you know,
Rory says, doesn't that mean the family would have to be trained or prepared for this kind of interaction? What's your thoughts on that?
well, if they're a family, they're already been prepared. They've been
Mm.
prepared for the amalgamation of different responses and
Mm.
varied responses from the troublemakers in the family, from the healers in the family,
Hmm.
from the youngest, from the oldest, to the brats, to the responsible people. Families are very well already structured in a way that they can handle bad behavior, they can handle good behavior. They already have internal systems and mechanisms to deal with them. And so, if your family allow them, to, allow unconditional acceptance, positive regard to enter into the room. Allow the fact that we can say something that we may not like, but yet we are still going to be family. Yeah.
I'm going to throw something at you.
Okay.
Um, and of course, I'm a Christian. I'm an Adventist Christian with a belief system. Can I go to Can I go to the cemetery during Thanksgiving time or during these times? Is it okay for me to go to the cemetery? I know they can't hear me. I know, um, um, there's nothing happening there. Can I go there? I've gotten that question so many times with those who are grieving. Can I go visit the cemetery?
Cemeteries aren't for the dead; they're for the living. We tend to think that the cemetery is a place where we just go to store our dead. No, it's the place where we go to memorialize those people that we have lost, right? And so now, am I going there to have a conversation with someone and thinking that they can hear and respond? No. But am I going there because that's the place that I've marked that says this is the emotional tie that I have to this emotional space? The physical relationship that we have with people, that discontinues.
Okay.
We can't physically
Okay.
see them, but
Okay.
the emotional connection and the emotional relationship continues.
Right.
They still exist in my heart. They still exist in my mind. They still exist in my memory. Well, where does that go? If the cemetery represents a place that I can go to where I'm alone with my thoughts about this person, or
Mm. Mhm.
I go because I want to make sure that I want to dress up the flowers. I want to do something in memorial of this person, and whatever I can do to maintain those things called continuing bonds,
Right.
those bonds that continue to link us to those people that we've lost. Then go right on ahead and do it. Like I said, there's no one that can prescribe to you what you can and cannot do in death,
Mhm.
or you
Mhm.
can and cannot do in grief.
Mm.
You're Adventist. I'm Adventist. We believe that the dead know not nothing.
Right. Right.
The cemetery is not for the dead; it's for the living.
Wow. You know, it, I know that, and yet hearing it makes me say, okay, that's good. So if there's someone who says, hey, I need to go there for me, is it actually therapeutic for them to go there? Is it actually um, um, it, is it okay for them? What is it actually doing for them to be there? And not even just to be there, but to be able to memorialize them. What does it
I
do
don't.
for them?
I don't know. It does whatever they tell you it does, and we have to believe that whatever it is that they say it does, that's what it does.
Oh, wow.
We have to believe that, because, like I said, we're all different.
Hmm.
Um, you know, grief grief is hard, man. It's some of the hardest work that you can possibly do. Um, and the thing is, you just want to make sure people don't engage in behaviors that are unhelpful, or that they don't try to
Okay.
medicate the pain,
Okay.
or that
Okay.
they don't
Okay.
shy away, or they don't isolate.
Okay.
But the things that people do to memorialize or to commemorate, their loved ones, allow them to do it. It's okay. It's a part of the process, because the worst thing is to act like it doesn't exist, to act like the pain doesn't exist, to try to swallow the pain or avoid the pain. Any pain that stays avoided is going to just stay with you, man. It's going to come up. You'll be triggered. You'll watch a movie and we'll be sitting down there. Remember when Kobe Bryant died, we had all these brothers out there crying and they ain't never met Kobe. Man, I
Yeah.
had Celtics fans crying over a Laker that had died, right? Um, what it did was it made it socially acceptable, specifically for men, to begin to grieve
Yes.
the
Yes.
things that they have repressed.
Yes.
And so it wasn't that they grieved, and maybe they were sad that Kobe died, but it was all of the displaced grief that they experienced over their lives that didn't have a place to go, that didn't get cried out or grieved out the right way, that it triggered something in them and it made it socially acceptable to begin to have these emotional reactions. And so we just have to make sure that in our therapeutic spaces, in our church spaces, in those spaces that we want to be safe, at the Thanksgiving table, at the Christmas tree, whatever, that we give people the space to be themselves, to grieve, to emote, and to know that it's okay.
You know, you talked about negative behavior. You talked
Hmm.
about, especially like isolation. Um, there are those who go through isolation, and I'm glad that at the beginning of the broadcast you kind of mentioned it's not just for death. It could be for moving. You know, you touched it really quick. There are a lot of people who have relocated at this time. There are a lot of people who have relocated their families at this time.
Yeah.
Kids are going to different schools. I know that the majority of the people who are probably listening to us are probably thinking more loss of life. But when you're dealing, you named a few of them, but you really touched isolation. Can you just unpack isolation for us, please?
So, so one thing we don't do is we don't compare our losses, because then it begins to minimize other people's pain. Like,
Okay.
I have been in grief groups. I've led grief groups with people. I had a woman that had lost her daughter in a car accident, and another woman that lost her dog. And the woman who lost her dog had a much more difficult time than the woman who lost her child. And it's not saying that the dog is more important than the child, but remember, we don't grieve people, we grieve relationships.
Relationships.
And so if my relationship to this was the only thing that I had, if all that woman had was her dog, she has now lost everything. Not saying that we're comparing that to the loss of a child in any way, shape, or form. And so the isolation that comes along with grief, it relates to one, when people lose individuals, right? The first thing that happens is people can come and they'll say dumb stuff to you. You
Hmm.
know,
Go
God,
ahead through
God
it.
know, God knows best. Don't worry, you'll see them again. They'll say stuff like, give it some time. People say dumb stuff all the time to people who are grieving because they don't understand grief, or they don't. It's not that they don't even understand it. They don't know what to say. And so it causes some people that have people who over spiritualize death, even.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you know,
yeah.
it causes them to isolate because they don't want to hear no more dumb stuff. They're in pain, they're hurting. No one is listening to them. People don't want to talk to them. People avoid the conversations about their loved ones. You know, um, so they isolate because they don't feel
They
like they
don't
can
want.
get the support, or they
Right.
don't feel like they can, that someone understands their pain, or someone, you want to have a conversation with someone about losing their mother, and someone's going to tell you, oh, I lost my mother too, I know exactly how you feel. No, you don't. you
Mm.
didn't you didn't lose the person that I lost. You lost your mother. I lost, but our relationships weren't the same. We grieve relationships. Okay. So that isolation and that loneliness is one of those secondary losses that come along, or accompany grief. In that people don't understand what to say, or people don't understand how to deal with people who are hurting, or people who are sad. And so they don't treat them with the kindness. They don't just give them room to be. You know, I say even less now than I've ever said before when someone has lost something. Like, what am I gonna say? I can't. I come and I say, look, man, I'm just here. I'm just here to sit with you. I'm just here sit here to offer you a hug. I'm just here to just be present with you. There ain't nothing I can say. Unless my words can raise the dead, there's nothing I can do.
That uh, that's hard for someone like me who is a talker. But I've learned that recently. Like what I just said ain't make no sense at all. I
Yeah.
literally, I know we've had this conversation time before. Man, what do you say at a funeral? Forget funeral. What do you say when somebody passes? What do you, even if you mention a memory, it can hurt. So are you saying to me then that one of the things that we do is to just say, I don't want to be around people, so I'm going to sit here in the corner. I'm going to lay in my bed all day. That's a negative thing. I can pick up negative behaviors, drinking, anything to numb. And when I say that, it doesn't have to be, drugs or any of that. I could decide I'm going to watch TV all day long, just all day, binge watch, just all day, out of my grief. By the way, I'm not talking about out of entertainment, but out of my grief.
Mhm.
Isolation to me is deep because you don't want to speak to anybody. You don't want to talk to anybody. You don't want to be around anybody. If I'm isolating myself, I know that there are listeners right now that decide I'm not going to church. I'm not, you know, I'm not. How do you get out of isolation? I've been there. How do you get out of isolation?
Um, it's a part of it is, and it's treated almost like you would treat depression.
Okay.
It's not something that you can prescribe to people. Um, you get out of isolation by getting out of isolation. I know that sounds dumb
No,
and it
no,
sounds
no,
cliche,
no,
but it, it
no.
it's finding safe spaces. It's finding groups where, so if you're grieving, there are grief groups out there where everybody is grieving, and so nothing you do is going to be abnormal to a bunch of people who are grieving.
Right, right, right.
There are grief groups. There's organizations that provide grief groups. There are organizations that provide socialization.
Right.
Finding out, instead of looking for places where you can sit down and talk, look for things that you can go out and do. Volunteer. There's some healing that happens in doing those things that are even beyond yourself.
Sure.
Sometimes church can sometimes be very difficult
Okay.
for
Okay.
people who have isolated, because church can sometimes be unsafe. And when I say it's unsafe,
Mm.
sometimes is that we can be a bit judgmental and censorious with people. We can sometimes try to heal the heart with the head by telling people what they should know. So you should, oh man, no, that God is with you and God loves you and all the, you don't got to tell me God loves me. I know that, but I don't feel that way right now because my mother or my father is gone, and I feel that God has taken away. So I'm angry with God.
Right.
And so you telling me God loves me? I mean, that must be some tough kind of love. And so it's hard sometimes to get individuals who are grieving to reconnect with the spaces that also were indicative of the last time they saw their mother,
Right.
their
Right.
father, their loved one. The
Hmm.
last time they walked in that same church, their mother was, or their loved one, or their grandmother, or their son or daughter was laying in a casket at the front of the church. Can you imagine that
Yeah.
sort of pain
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
go then and relive? So man,
Wow. No, no, Dave.
the
I've
church has
never
to be
thought,
brought to them.
Doc. I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it
Yeah.
that way. That they could be triggered again by going to the same church.
And it's not a trigger.
Okay.
It's normal. It's a
Mm,
normal, natural part of grief, man.
mm,
And everywhere you go, you see that person. Everywhere you go, you hear their voice because you're longing for that again. And so if I'm longing for something, I'm gonna go find it. It's the same thing with a drug addict, right? If I'm longing for another hit,
hit. Hmm.
I'ma go find it. Well, with the person who's grieving, they're longing for another conversation. They're longing for one more hug. They're longing for all these things. And so everywhere they go, they're going to realize that I'm missing this. And so we have to be able to begin to orient ourselves around that, making sure that even for yourself at churches, one of the things that I used to try to do at my church is everyone who had lost someone, we made sure that we would follow up with them a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, because you may think that it's time that heals the wounds. No, time doesn't do nothing for nobody. It's what you do in the space of that time that will bring healing. But, it's making sure that you one, let the person know, I remember you lost this person, and I'm reaching out to you because it's the anniversary of this person's death, and I just wanted to just check on you, just say hello. I want to pay a visit. Um, I've had I've had members complain in the past about me not coming to visit them more than once. Like I'll visit them when the person dies,
Right.
but then I won't come back. They got plenty of visitors. They don't need me to visit. But a month later, 2 months later, when no one's bringing no more casseroles and no one's coming by anymore, that's when I come by, because this is when they're now sitting with the reality that this person is gone.
Right. Right.
This is when they need the support. Everybody comes at funeral time.
Yeah.
Everyone comes when it just happens, and then the person also doesn't know what they need at that time anyway. What they need is that person to walk back through the door. They can't get that.
It just sounds ghostly, but I get it, and I do get that as a pastor. I just was talking to my bereavement coordinator and said to them, this is not just for this season, but we need to be around for other seasons that come around for them. So I'm grateful to hear you say that.
Now,
Mhm.
before someone hears me say that and think that I'm being dismissive about those people, no, it's both and. It's making sure that you have those people that deal with and walk with your members in the aftermath of their losses, right when it happens. There are people who are talented and gifted at that, right? And then there are those that are good and gifted at the follow up. Bereavement ministry should not just be in the immediate aftermath planning for funerals, they should also be after that in
Yeah.
how we now plan to help this person reorient their lives.
Absolutely amazing. I know we just have a little bit of time that we spend together, and we're live right now. So if there's anyone who'd like to give or ask Dr. Defoe any questions concerning grieving, you can go ahead and do that by calling in at 301-969-8375. Again, the number is 301-969-8375. And of course, if you're watching this, that number won't. If you're watching it later, that number won't work. We have with us Dr. David Defoe, who just prolific when it comes to grief and loss and the other modalities that he handles. But this, I've heard him deal with grief, and it's absolutely amazing how he gives us the opportunity to think through this. Dave, I want to thank you for that because I think that that when we grieve someone, sometimes we even grieve to the point of not even discussing them, not talking about them anymore, taking down pictures. Um,
Avoidance.
eh, okay, that's the word,
Yeah.
avoidance. Is that healthy? Here we go. I know what you're going to say. Nope, nope. Answer the question. Is it healthy?
Listen, okay, s- some of us don't have the luxury of sitting at home and crying all the time.
Whoa.
Um,
No, no,
and I
no,
know
no,
that's,
no,
I
no. You're
know
not
that,
gonna get it.
I
You're
know
not
that
gonna get away
sounded,
with that one. Hold
I know
on.
that sounded crass,
It-
but some of us don't have that luxury. Some of us
mm-hmm.
have jobs, they give you 3 days off and they expect you to go back to work.
It's true.
Um, and so there has to be some detachment is a gift. Okay. There has to be some ability to detach from the emotions in order to stay productive if you have to stay productive. Um,
It's
and
okay. Go
so
ahead. Go ahead.
if you have to stay productive. And so um, avoidance can be useful
Okay.
if
Okay.
I come back to the thing that I'm avoiding. So I teach some people. I teach some people. I'm working with someone now. I'm teaching her how to um, schedule her grief. Sit down because she like you can't like so we have to schedule time for her to invite her grief into her room.
What?
The pictures, the memories, the tears,
Yeah.
the stories.
Yeah.
This is when you go and you listen to the voicemail from your son.
Uh,
This is when you do all those things.
uh,
We schedule it and we give it enough time. And then we tell it, we're going to try our best to pick you back up at this time. Now it's going to come back because you can't tell grief when to show up.
okay.
However, we're going to honor it and invite it in at this same time every day, right? So that as I go through life trying to avoid things so that I can keep money in the bank, and I think this individual is in law enforcement, so she don't need So yeah, you need to have your wits about you at times,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And so we need to make sure you're not um, permanently avoiding your pain. So you have to bring it back up, right? And so we're teaching her to do that. That works for her. It doesn't necessarily work for everyone.
Right. Right.
For some people, they can't avoid how they feel. With those individuals, we teach them to just be honest. Think about whether or not you're gonna buy a T-shirt that says I'm grieving and I'm sad. I'll be okay, right? So that everybody knows as you're breaking down at the bus stop, as you're breaking down in the mall, as you're breaking down in the store, everyone can see on your chest plainly, I'm grieving. This is no one's going to do that, but
Right. Right.
it's giving yourself that kind of permission to realize that I don't have to be too concerned about what people think about me or what people say about me. People aren't going to understand, but regardless, I still have to get these emotions out. I still have to get these tears out because if we don't cry it out, we act it out, and that will make it even
Well,
worse.
well. I know we only have about 15 more minutes. We don't cry it out. We're gonna act it out. Um, what is the best way? Yeah, I think you answered this already. But how can I recover? How can I? How can I come back to, or bring back normalcy, or even if that's possible?
Okay, this is the beautiful thing: is there is no more normal.
Jeez.
Normal has been permanently redefined. So there's a new normal that I have to find. Um, there's new life that has to be. There's no going back. I have to create something new. Grief not only terminates or death not only terminates the life of the individual who has died, it also alters the life of the individual who is loved and who still remains. It redefines parents. It redefines children who are now orphans. It redefines spouses who are now widowers or widowers. Death is redefining. And so I have to go about navigating and putting back the pieces of, or building a new life that carries this person into new memories that I
Mm,
have,
mm,
that carries this person into new circumstances that they won't ever see or
mm.
be with me in. Um, and so, it's important for us to understand that, we have to be present with our emotions so that we
Mm.
can integrate our emotions in a helpful and a healing way. We have to stay connected. Um, and then we also have to figure out a way to, navigate a life without the hopes, dreams, and expectations that existed with the person that we lost. Um,
It's weird, Dave. It's weird.
I that's that's the only way. The way that we recover it also is that we have to. For many of us, we have things that we wish we could have said, we wish we could have done.
Right, right.
There's
Said it now.
apologies we wish we could have made. There are things that we wish we could forgive people for. There's significant emotional things that we wish we could have said that we couldn't say.
Right.
Well, what do we do with all that stuff, right? We have to process it. We have to get it out. We have to figure out a way to release it. That could come through grief groups. It can come through letters where you craft your own unique language. It could come through counseling. It can come through going to the cemetery and talking out the things that you wish you could say, understanding that that person's not gonna be able to respond to you,
Sure,
but
sure.
talking out those things you wish you could say. There's a whole lot of things. The problem is it's so unique that there's no way to tell you what to do that will cover everybody. Grief is experienced on a personal level. It's personality driven even.
Wow.
How I love is personal, so how I grieve has got to be personal.
Ooh, how you love is personal. So how as you said before, relationship, right? So how you
Mhm.
love, wow, is personal. Grief is personal. Rodney said, "Wow, grief must give birth. If not, it will destroy."
I like that, and I'm gonna use that without giving him credit. 'Cause- yeah, grief must give birth. I like that. I love that. I've never said yes. I love it. It must give birth to something new where you carry the memories along with you. Yes,
I,
absolutely.
I could never thought about that. I know that Rodney is one that I believe he had lost his brother some time ago. I could
Hmm.
remember that. I have not. So I can't understand that right now when I said, "What about the normalcy?" and you said new normalcy. Now here's Rodney talking
Like,
about new life.
yeah,
Something else has to come out about that.
yeah.
Is there a time factor for that though?
No, come on, man. So the impact of grief may minimize, and not the grief doesn't minimize. You grow around the grief stays the same. You grow, you have an opportunity to grow so that the grief appears smaller when it's really just you just have developed more emotional capacity, right, to deal with pain, right. But like, so say for instance something happened to your twin brother, right.
Sure, right.
I like him more than you, but anyway, say something happens. You're no longer a twin. That has redefined you. You now have to navigate life with the fact that now all I got now in my life is Dusty Gary. Don't tell him I said that. I love your brother, man. He do some great things in this space, man. I love it. But no, no, it then causes you to have to redefine yourself. It, it's
You know,
it's it,
my heart literally jumped when you were like, "You're no longer a twin." So it's like, what would my life be like? So then I would have to create a new Pat somewhere.
not a, you wouldn't create a new Pat. You would have to redefine, or
Right.
you'd have to create a new
Sure.
a new yeah. No,
Okay.
there's
Okay.
no going back.
Right. There's no going back.
There's no going back. You have to move forward, but you can move forward. The good thing I want people to know is you can move forward along with the memories of that person. What they've taught you, what they've said to you, the memories that you've carried. Now, the opposite. There's another part of this as
Go,
we talk
go.
about grieving with families
Yeah.
is there are individuals who grieve every time they return home because there are people who have been grieving their loss of innocence, and that loss of innocence was taken from them by someone who's at the family table with them. And so even that's something that's very triggering for them as well. And so they're dealing with the trauma of having to always be in spaces with someone um, who has hurt them, who has caused pain to them. That's another thing that we also got to think of with the holidays too. Is that there's a lot of families are very complex, and
Right.
they're difficult structures, but they're beneficial.
So don't stay away from the Thanksgiving table. Don't stay away from the gift giving, the the
Not if you're grieving. Not if you're grieving. For those of us who are black, black people, because of our connection to the motherland, we grieve in community. We cannot grieve alone. We
right.
heal in community. We cannot heal alone. um, we have to make sure that we get out, we get emotional, we get connected, we get creative in how we deal with our grief. We get informed about the nuances of our grief. We get involved, and then we look within to get some insight into how we can move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's there's a fear when you
Hmm.
think about it. Um, we grieve our pets, like you said.
Yeah.
We grieve. Grief is basically a loss. I know now we're thinking about the dining room table. We're thinking about the Thanksgiving table. We're thinking about Christmas. We're thinking about all that. But the truth is that they still grieve even past that. Am I right? The New Year, right? You still got Easter, right? We're talking about the holidays when there's so much more.
Pat, grief lives as long as love lives. And so if you can't get rid of the love, you can't get rid of the grief,
Oh
man.
my
You're just gonna
goodness.
have to figure out a way. We have to figure out a way to grow around the emotional impact of it.
It's tough. It's tough.
it
It's like I said before. It's been a week. It's been a week. It's been 3, 4, 5 weeks.
it's
With
the it's the hardest thing to help people as a therapist, in my opinion, go through, because there's no treatment for it. The treatment for it is to sit there and griefs. Can I say that word in here?
sucks.
Grief, grief stinks. Or I can say sucks here. Grief sucks, and
Say
the
it,
only
man.
way for it to be less sucky is to let it suck.
Oh
And
wow,
the thing is, like, what can you do? What can
wow,
you do? What
wow,
can you do? There's not.
wow.
You have to feel it. You have to bring it into the room. You have to let it sit with you, and you have to carry it along with you wherever you go.
Grissom asked the question: when does one know that they need the help? When do we know?
That you need help,
Yeah.
like in terms of professional help. Maybe perhaps if maybe perhaps if there is some disequilibrium in your ability to go to work, maintain positive relationships.
Mm-hmm.
If maybe you've turned to some um, short-term behavior that sort of helps you relieve the pain of your grief, it may be time to sit down with someone to sort of begin to talk with them about it. If you are crying and remembering that person, there's nothing wrong with that. If you need someone to talk to that you feel like people don't listen to you, and you will need someone to talk to, because a lot of things, a good healing mechanism for grief is to have someone to tell the story of your grief and to have
Mm,
someone listen and
mm.
then receive that story, and honor that story. And so, if you feel like you don't have people that listen or that want to talk about it, then by all means, there are a lot of grief groups that are out there that you can utilize. There's the Grief Recovery Institute. There is Grief Share. There's some other ones out there that you can get with, and maybe MSAD will open up a grief component one day, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of the reactions of anxiety and depression, the same emotional responses are tied to grief. Grief is the depression of the heart, where depression is the depression of the head.
Right.
And a lot of people, they think they can treat the grief, the depression of the head the same way they treat the depression of the heart, and it's not the
Gotcha.
same.
Gotcha.
Grief is when your heart hurts, when
Wow,
yeah,
Dave, I don't know. I don't know. I know I've asked you to come on for about 15 minutes, but but this
yeah.
is
That's
absolutely
that's
amazing.
enough.
Yeah,
That's enough.
that's enough. That's enough. Really, I know. Thank you for that. Um, I think that we ought to also be careful of our moods, that it doesn't take us to some place where we cannot recover from. I'm hearing you talk about negative behavior.
Well, you can always recover. There's always hope for recovery. We never lose hope for recovery. We never lose hope for improvement. As long as we're above the ground, we can improve.
Amazing, amazing. Listen, man, thanks for jumping on with us. We didn't get the calls that's come in, but I know that there are people who are going to leave messages afterwards. I know that you are absolutely excellent at that. How's Amara Counseling coming along?
I work for Allegheny East Conference.
And Allegheny East Conference and and you're
Yep.
yeah, I got it. And honestly doing a great job at letting people know where they stand. I think mental health is something that we need to put out in the forefront. We still need to normalize it. Just letting those people know that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to go to therapy. And now, funny as it may be, if you want to talk about the industry a little bit, hate to call it that, but a lot of people have been saying that it's difficult for them to get therapists. Why, why, why do you think that is?
Yeah. It's possible. Um. Yeah. I think that a lot of therapy and therapists are overworked.
Okay, okay,
Um. It takes a lot to carry people's stuff,
yeah,
and
yes, I agree.
so I think that you know, don't give up. Keep
Okay,
trying.
I got you. I got you. I got you.
Go on the listserv, send the emails, send the calls, pay attention to people's listings, and if they say they're not taking clients, don't write them. They're not taking clients.
Mm,
If they tell you on their website, don't email me, call me, or don't email me, fill out this form. Um, Fill out the
pay
form.
attention to that.
Pay attention to that. Those are just little things. And then if you're looking for people that look like you, that have your experiences, know that you sort of limit what you can have, but they're great individuals. So, like, say you're a person of color, there are great listservs out there for people of color, that you can find other individuals of color. Just be patient. It is still healthcare. So, one of the things that we got to be very cognizant of is mental health care is still healthcare. And healthcare in America is always hard to access. Um,
I got you.
and so,
I got
keep
you.
trying,
Yeah,
keep
keep trying.
trying,
Keep
keep
trying.
calling. There are very few weekend appointments and evening appointments. I'm just talking about from our own context.
Yep.
Even so, people who say I work and I need an evening appointment, well, if you can't come in the middle of the day, well, right now we can't help you because we don't have any availability. So, being flexible in your schedule is also going to help you. There's With the rise of telehealth, there's a lot of more access to mental health care through the
Sure.
telehealth space as
Sure.
well. And so, be open to, if you're looking for in person, be open to also being in on telehealth. If you really need the help, get the help.
Somebody
Best
just
way you
hit
can.
me and said, "What is listserv?" Can you just
Oh,
real quick?
things like Psychology Today, or there's Therapy Den, there's Good Therapy, there's Clinicians of Color, there's therapyforblackgirls.com, there's
Gotcha.
therapyforblackmen.com.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of counseling listservs where it lists, therapists. Um, get their
Yeah.
contact
Gotcha.
information and contact them
Gotcha.
directly through the site.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and get
Listen,
the
man.
help you
Thanks.
need.
Thanks for hanging out with us, and I'm sure this is going to help someone along the way. I know that again we've had plenty of losses and plenty of, but I love what you said. We can still recover. We can
Oh
still
yeah,
get better. We can
recovery is
still
always possible.
improve. I love that one, especially we can still improve on
Hmm.
everything. So just thanks for hanging with us, and I'm going to need you again because I want to do something on what not to say or what to say at funerals.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah,
I need
please.
you at that one. That to me is something that's important for us to do. Thanks for hanging out with us. Brian is with us. Rodney's with us. Rory's with us, and a few others that have come on board with us. And remember, everyone, to share this with someone you love. Dave, thanks again for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the back end. Have a good Thanksgiving, and tell Dana I said hello.
All right, man. Send us some money.
Yeah, okay. Send you some money or send Dana some money?
Send her,
Send her
her.
some money.
Yeah.
Listen, man, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for hanging out
All
with
right,
us.
man.
Everybody, that was my friend, my mentor, Dr. David Defoe. He's just awesome in what he does, and you can always find him on social media under David Defoe. He's not big on social media, but one thing I know that he's in this healing space that I feel is important for us. I'm going to ask you now to support us in all that you can. Go to MSAD Tip Jar, and also I want to just let everyone know, just have a good weekend, have a good week, have a good day. The one thing that I got from him in all of this is one thing: we can always improve, we can always get better, and we can always recover. Those who are going through grief, and all of us may have a piece of that going, let's grow around it. That's what I got. Let's grow around it. Still going to remain the same, but let's grow around it. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us in MSAD, Managing Stress, Anxiety, and Depression, and a great time to talk about grief. God bless you.
We also want to take a moment to express our gratitude for your support. If you appreciate the content we provide and would like to support us as we continue delivering quality episodes, please consider making a financial contribution to msadtipjar.com. Your support, no matter the size, goes a long way in keeping this program running and accessible to everyone. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of MSAD. We hope you found valuable insights and inspiration to enhance your mental health journey. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. Again, thank you from the host, Patrick Graham of MSAD, Managing Stress, Anxiety, and Depression. Have a great day, and God bless you real good.